Hello, my name is Musonda Mumba and I'm the director for the UNDP Rome Center for Sustainable Development. What is the most effective way to deal with climate change? Well, climate change, as you know, is a complex problem. And it's in this nature of complexity that we need to find a diverse cocktail of solutions to actually deal with it. And these solutions both relate to mitigation and adaptation. The mitigation side of things is how do we reduce this greenhouse gases by the way we use energy, by the way we warm our homes, by the way we use our transportation, or even just generally the way we live. So in this way, the solutions can be technological, such as renewable energies, for example, changing and transitioning to more cleaner and just technologies that are relevant for reducing these greenhouse emissions, which of course are warming the earth. And then other ways are related to adaptation. How do we adapt to this new way of life, a new way of living? And in this adaptation, this can come in the form of restoring ecosystems. For example, in some of the degraded landscapes that we're aware of, we can plant natural tree species or grasses, or if it's a coastal landscape, we can actually look at solutions such as managing the marine ecosystem, such as planting mangroves and also dealing with these solutions. Now, climate change requires also a lot of behavioral changes. Some of the fossil fuel problematic elements are things like plastic that are also problematic to climate change. And so the behavioral change is, for instance, in Kenya, where they have banned the use of plastic, or in Rwanda, we begin to see that there's a reduction in some of these emissions in these spaces. So it's very important that we have a collective cocktail of solutions, as it were. So adaptation and mitigations are two sides of the same coin. In order to actually have a good culture of sustainability, it's important that we also relate to these common frameworks that may be between states, around science, or let alone within specific communities. I'll give an example of the European Union as a framework, as a whole. Within the EU, there was a directive that was talking about the stopping of single-use plastic. It is this collective framework that is so important and is also guiding, as a guiding principle, in essence, to stop this potentially dangerous use of one material that is not in any way circular. In Africa, we've also seen how, for instance, the African Union has now prepared what is called the Green Recovery Plan. These frameworks are so important as we all journey towards a sustainable way of living and a sustainable culture around the world. We've also seen in different spaces where trading blocks, for example, with WTO, where how are we trading sustainably, even looking at, materials such as wood or commodities such as coffee. Where are they being sourced? Are they being sourced sustainably? And all of these frameworks are guiding that are so important that people are a part of, and also businesses, as it were private sector entities, for example, are a part of. And so it's important that these principles that have standards and guiding principles in terms of how we live and how we journey towards a way in which we reduce pressure on the planet is so, so important. And similarly, the climate change framework, the UN framework on climate change, which is also a fantastic framework that is also very critical in dealing with sustainability, where member states are members of, for instance, the Paris Agreement, and as such are also looking to reducing all these emissions that are also complementary and affecting elements of sustainability. So it's very important that these frameworks exist and they're guiding us collectively as humanity across the planet. Indeed, there are examples worldwide with concrete actions where we're beginning to see change. I'll give an example of the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall of Africa is the world's largest restoration and adaptation initiative. This is an initiative that is being led by the Food and Agriculture Organization from a research perspective, but more collectively by the African Union. And us as the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, we're part of this initiative. It's amazing to see a lot of action on the ground and communities being involved and citizenry involved in the restoration agenda. So these actions from the bottom up are inclusive actions that bring everyone to resolve a common problem and impacts on their communities. We have also seen in what we call the Equator Prize, where we've seen examples from Mexico, for instance, where indigenous peoples are producing their own coffee sustainably and trading and sharing this coffee around the world and showing communities and people around the world that coffee can be grown sustainably. Similarly, we've also seen examples in Latin America and other parts of Asia where we're beginning to see real action. For example, work in Nepal on mountain issues. There we worked with UNEP and IUCN on ecosystem restoration and adaptation to really deal with mountain communities and support them in really making sure that they build resilient and sustainable communities. And through this work, we've begun to see that it really has to be inclusive, includes women and youth, and also brings in private sector entities to understand that sustainability is a collective way of action.